MacKenzie Scott is known as a very rich person, generous person and the ex-wife of founder of Amazon, Jeff Bezos. Throughout she was a big part of their marriage. Part behind the scenes, while the building one of the largest in the world companies worked together, they were seen as a strong couple with a lot of power in business and work. But now that I'm 55, MacKenzie Scott has finally told everyone about the real reason. She split up with Jeff Bezos, and what, she says, is much worse than anyone else's thought. This shocking statement would happen changes everything we thought we knew about their split and the rise of a powerful. The story of MacKenzie and Jeff began as a couple. Long before everyone knew their names, they met before the internet was popular. Still fresh and full of options in the early 1990s, MacKenzie and Jeff met. As a worker at a New York hedge fund at the time, MacKenzie had called the Shaw. Have just graduated from Princeton. She learned English and became a strong desire to write. Jeff had been a top vice for years, head of the company where their offices were close, and MacKenzie later talked about through the wall. I could hear Jeff's laugh. It didn't take before they spoke long for a link to appear. MacKenzie liked how smart and driven Jeff was. Jeff thought MacKenzie's was great, sharp mind and thoughtful personality. There the bond grew quickly, and after just a few after meeting for months, they got engaged. They got married in 1993, not long after they moved to Seattle to begin a new life together. Jeff had I have a big idea for an online shop, and MacKenzie stood by him from the beginning. At first, she drove across the country with him and helped get things ready for the company that would become Amazon. In the beginning, MacKenzie did every job, from packing to accounting, boxes being very important in building the business. They got married young, having a love for adventure, and with determination, they jumped in together. The business world doesn't know their very soon, lives would change in unimaginable ways. In those early days, their bond was they were strong together in every way. Mitchell helped Jeff with his business. Jeff liked MacKenzie's side, and it was a rare kind of art and peace of working together where their skills they matched each other. Amazon began in a small garage, but they both got it. It was the start of something big. They stayed in touch because they shared a dream. Even though the stress was rising, relationship was built on shared desire and respect for each other, not just a husband and wife friends on a trip that would change the way people buy things and work with computers. While MacKenzie paid attention to the business side, she stood by quietly, juggling her duties as a mother, writer and early Amazon customer donor. As Amazon grew quickly, Jeff went from being a passionate business owner to a strong CEO. His days grew longer and his duties. He became one of the most heavy men in business. MacKenzie was watched. While she was making her own way, she kept writing and came up with a strong voice as an author, but Jeff says the expectations grew, so did the focus on them. On his time and attention with Amazon. Jeff, your growth is faster than anyone expected. Kevin spent more time away from home. Helped him, but the balance started to shift. People who used to stay up should be moved late, making plans for the future. They were in different worlds when talks that used to be full of hope, and when thoughts were weighed down by it was normal to feel tired and stressed because of their success, but it put down the first strained seeds. It looked like a small gap at first. Trips there late at night, but the cracks slowly got bigger. But MacKenzie was still there, taking care of the family and kept things steady. But Jeff was. Amazon's growth is pulling people more and more. And his growing hobbies, which his new job with Blue Origin and others. She thinks the man she married was changing who they are in public. Everyone saw Jeff as a leader and MacKenzie as the helpful partner in the background, but not in sight behind closed doors. The story was more complicated. The stress of fame, money, and power. They made sure their bond wasn't just about the time Jeff was away, it was what those hours did to the trust and how close they used to be. When Amazon went public in 1997, its life had already changed in some ways. They weren't sure how successful they were yet. Was exciting, but also separating. Jeff's growing power brought attention from everywhere. MacKenzie had to deal with the problem of her own name in the public eye. This was a fresh start for both of them, full of a promise and an unknown. That the couple's wealth went through the roof, a very wealthy person in the world, but that money brought new problems. Taking public business decisions, close watch, and the pressure to keep their strong marriage, it was a scary time balance. On the outside, they looked strong, but the busy plans and changing goals pulled them in a quiet way. Looking back, the signs were not very clear. But I missed dinner here. I forgot what we talked about at MacKenzie's. It was hard to be patient and understand. As Jeff's job took over their love, it was still there after being shared, but it had to keep up with the needs of a world empire, or did it grow the only thing? Distance and quiet fights as Amazon's reach grew, and Jeff's tasks made each day harder. The beat of their lives started to change in ways that not even MacKenzie could fully understand. Handle something that used to feel like a shared. The trip slowly split into two alternate paths. Each road takes more time and energy, and more attention than the couple could give for each other. Jeff's plan turned into public meetings that are famously full. How things look and smart choices. He was often away from home for a long time. Widens. His job was changing from business owner to world business leader, and that brought challenges that few could really understand. MacKenzie, meanwhile, had to deal with the problem of matching her own goals with the more and more needs of family life, and MacKenzie was used to being in the public eye. To work hard before she met Jeff, been writing books, and she stayed. She was dedicated to her own artistic and interested in helping others, but the speed, the fast pace of their lives often left her feeling left out, a partner being overshadowed by Jeff's huge public presence. Even though she agreed with his plan for Amazon, the distance was getting farther away. Not pay attention at home, the pair faced the quiet fights that many well-known marriages have missed, times that weren't said. Angry feelings, and the slow loss of it became possible to have intimate talks. And brief, with an emphasis on procedures rather more than feelings. The mental link that had kept them going in their youth began to fray, replaced by a set of rules, by busy schedules and other. MacKenzie often found herself with to-do lists, taking care of many home tasks and taking care of parenting duties alone, while Jeff was distracted by something else. The gap between them reflected it got harder because of the emotional division. For them to just be together as a pair, the dreams that had brought them together, they seemed like faraway memories, in that they had to deal with their own problems. MacKenzie still had to deal with problems. Determined to keep their family together, they thought that with enough time and with enough work, the marriage could stand up to the strain, but she seemed calm on the outside. Things were getting. She started to feel that there were more problems than just a busy or the stress of being famous in public. Jeff and MacKenzie kept to show that they are united. They all of their looks smiled for the cams and talked about what they had in common value. But the silence behind the scenes grew louder. Insiders and friends heard there are hints of conflict in the change, and the distance began to move through. The whole story was kept secret. MacDonald's changing character also played a part in this growing gap. She wasn't just Jeff's wife anymore. She was an author who helps people and person with her own voice. This spiritual growth, while giving you power, sometimes brought out the differences. What used to be a partnership based on shared goals, right now it felt more like two people were moving apart. It wasn't just about time or pay attention, it was about trust and small differences in relation, unfinished business and unspoken angry feelings built up over time. But MacKenzie hid how she felt about these things. Choosing to think about what she could do, control, instead of facing what hurts. Facts. Too soon, the couple had begun getting farther apart in a way that's certain, but the real reasons for the breakdown was kept secret. It wasn't that it was just distance or tiredness. Something more difficult. MacKenzie only learned a lot in the end. The cracks in their marriage were getting bigger, and while the world saw a couple dealing with the needs of success, MacKenzie knew there was more to it than that. Trouble she hadn't faced yet at the time was coming, when the real story behind the quiet fights would finally come to the surface. And everything would be different, the point of no return that no one saw coming. By this stage, how far away MacKenzie is from Jeff wasn't just a quiet in the background, it was getting hard not pay attention to, but from the outside there it still looked like marriage intact. They rarely talked about in public any trouble, and their rare joint, it looked like they were working together. Had been through the storm of rising fame and luck, but there are cracks behind the scenes were getting deeper in ways that not many people saw at the time. They saw it wasn't just the long work hours or the stress of Amazon's lightning-fast rise, it was a change in how they talked about a stress that they had passed the standard strains of a high-profile wedding. There were times when that was a clear sign of change. Said that the temperature dropped between them, a quiet pull away from the. They used to be emotionally close. Mackenzie's friends saw that she was moving in more private and guarded. Even Jeff, his mind was always on the next big job. Looked and felt less present than before. The good parts of their relationship was giving Mackenzie a tip. For her part, was still struggling with a growing sense of unease. The wedding that had begun with so a lot of hope was now causing pain and stress. She had worked hard to get rid of, keep the family together, to be the being behind the scenes, but the distance wasn't just a number. It was, I was feeling sad and it seemed impossible to. There were reports about the bridge in the media, though they were carefully set up to avoid full-on corruption. Stories hinted at stress and fights that were never named. The gossip only made the situation worse. How heavy Mackenzie felt in private. The problem she faced was to keep her family's safety while she was in charge of own sadness. Even though the stress is rising, Mackenzie still thought that things could get better. She thought that if she worked hard enough, talking could start up again, but though the more she tried, the worse things got. Pushed a while ago, something broke. Something went down below the surface. More than just busy plans or public under a lot of heat, this was a turn when there were no more cracks, only by friendship be fixed. Their marriage was shaken to its core. But not many people outside of their inner group, they knew how deep the cracks went. Mackenzie started to make plans for the future, getting ready for there is a chance that the marriage might not getting through. It was a sad realization for someone who had put money into putting so much money and feelings into what made this moment special was their shared life. It was especially hard that the reason for the falling apart was still in secret. Mackenzie was holding on to a secret that, if told, would help everything. But also how people act. People would always remember their story, find out about the split as one more celebrity breakup blamed on being too busy their lives and how they were different over time. But the story was much bigger than that and much more painful. The treachery that would end their relationship for good. This marriage hadn't come to light yet. The turning point was a hard change. From having hope to giving up their dream, the couple who once of making the future together were now facing each other across a growing split up, and while everyone waited for the official reason why, Mackenzie was having to deal with facts that went outside of public view, behind closed doors. In the months before they opened set apart, the differences between Mackenzie and Jeff were no longer being sneaky. They looked back on the way they used to live. The shared was breaking up, and the unspoken, there was more tension between them with each new day. But amidst the stress, the real reason why they fell apart stayed locked up and out of sight from all of them except Mackenzie. At this point their marriage was in bad shape. The space between them wasn't just not about time or plans, it was about the deep mental hole that neither could see to cross. Mackenzie had started to understand that the heart of, in some ways, their relationship was getting worse. Besides the normal problems she faced, she also tried to keep the life they had built, but it made it hard to catch water with her. Talks with hands that used to go smoothly, of course, were now stressed or avoided. All the laughter that used to fill their house was now very quiet. Mackenzie could see through the fake smiles. That something had already changed. How private Jeff was began to show up in subtle ways, unknown events that didn't make sense, sick days, and a new level of caution. And Mackenzie felt uneasy about the fact that there was a problem, but it was still not knowing the whole truth about this feeling. Growing sense of unease began to take over her, more heavy as she put together clues. No, someone else saw that the couple's public picture stayed very clean. In charge of neither talked about their problems, and the people who represent them did a lot to keep their stories secret. Outside of the center, but the built-up front couldn't hide the bigger gap between them. Mackenzie's it wasn't just about losing Jeff that was hard. It had to do with losing trust. Trust that used to be the foundation of things were going badly in their marriage. They had formed an emotional tie that was of cracks and was getting harder to hold the pieces together, and a family member was kept away from the. Truthfully, Mackenzie took on a lot of the work. Being the only one holding the weight of betrayal in silence, her calm exterior hiding the storm inside, a storm that is driven by questions and broken hearts. She was ready, but the world wasn't ready for the news yet that would soon shake the pillars of their cheating on their marriage and lack of. After years of growing apart, trust challenges and tensions that aren't spoken about, Mackenzie finally found out what was going on. That broke everything at 55. Mackenzie Scott finally says what the real reason is: she split up with Jeff Bezos, which is bad. Sick of all the words and lies said bad things about me behind my back. Here is the truth about what caused the fall of her marriage to Jeff wasn't just the lack of time or mental drift, it was betrayal that hurt her deeply and that she only found out a lot after some time. The last nail in the coffin was Jeff's relationship with someone else in secret. Woman, this wasn't an idle myth or talk. Mackenzie had to face the hard truth that when they found out the truth, revelation hit close to home. They broke up their relationship, and that trust that used to be the base. McDonald had been married for a long time. Allowed Jeff's stresses to build up. Empire grew, the long hours, and the not close emotionally, but the deception was not the same. It was against the holy tie. They told each other the secret. There was more to the relationship than lying. It was about Jeff hiding a part of his life because she broke that they had built trust over decades ago. This treason put the deep. Mackenzie had felt cracks but could never fully understand it, all the silent deals with the mental distance and the quiet wars in a new, terrible way, the long days and missed moment signs. But the union was a secret. Mackenzie found out that the reason was. It was terrible, and it wasn't just Jeff's not what they did but about the trust breach that stopped us from moving on together. They saw that no amount of what had been broken could be fixed with time or work. Have been made public in secret. Also talked about why they were getting apart seemed likely and final. The busy routines and emotional weariness might have made the marriage difficult, but this betrayal took away all hope of making peace. Was the turning point. Mackenzie knew she had to leave that place. The secret made the pain even worse. Jeff's private life showed a lack of that. Mackenzie could show respect and honesty, not forgive. This wasn't a moment of there was no mistake or sign of weakness. It was a decision that changed everything. When the truth came out, it shocked those close to them, and the public brought to light a part of the story that been kept from seeing, a much more painful than anyone thought. Mackenzie's choice to finally talk about it years later put an end to the reports, and there had been a lot of talk about there during the split. The betrayal wasn't just about Jeff, was seeing someone about the trust that was broken and the base of their marriage that fell apart as a result.